Ms. Sorgan, do you waive roll call of the jury?
State waives roll call.
Mr. Sand?
We do as well, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Sorgan, call your next witness.
State calls Laura Knapp.
Ms. Knapp, if you'll come up here, please, ma'am. Right up here, please, ma'am.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right. Now you can come over here, ma'am. Just watch the walkway there. Once you're seated, just kind of adjust the microphone. You can pull it forward and pull it down so it's kind of aimed at your chin, please. There you go. Perfect. The little lights on green. Okay. Ms. Sorgan, you may proceed, ma'am.
Thank you. Would you please state your name for the record?
Laura Knapp,
And would you please spell your last name?
Knapp.
Ma'am, are you currently employed?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you currently employed?
Yes, I am.
Do you have the same employer now that you did in 2007?
No, a different one.
Where were you employed at in 2007?
Northgate Apartments, Minot.
And what did you do there?
Resident manager of apartment complex.
And what does it mean to be a resident manager of that apartment complex?
What did I do there?
Yes.
Leases, showing apartments, deposits, help maintenance guys.
How long did you hold that position?
16 years.
And what years were those?
I'm sorry, what?
What were the dates, the years for those?
I still didn't catch that.
You said you worked there for 16 years. What were
Yes.
the dates?
Yeah, 16 years I worked there.
Okay. Starting what year and ending what year?
Probably about 1989, somewhere in there, until 2012.
Okay. And what was the address of the Northgate Apartments?
This started at 2400 4th Street Northwest,
And that's in what city?
Minot, North Dakota.
Do you recall a lease with regards to an individual by the name of Anita Knutson?
Yes.
Okay. And was anybody else on that lease with her?
The last one.
Was anybody else on that lease with her?
Nichole Rice.
What was the apartment number of that apartment?
It was 2420, number 5.
And could you describe that apartment for us? How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms?
2 bedrooms, 1 bath.
And could you describe the building that it was in?
Did I what?
Could you please describe the building that that apartment was in?
It was a building that had 8 apartments, 4 on the north side and 4 on the south side.
Okay. And which side was number 5 on?
North side, I believe.
Okay. I'm going to draw your attention to June 4th of 2007. Do you remember that day?
Yes.
What did you do that day?
Went to work.
Okay.
Did the normal duties, probably work in apartments or get an apartment ready for showing, because it's beginning of the month. Just a daily routine.
Okay. And when you were done with work that day, what did you do?
Went up to my apartment.
Okay. Now, is your apartment also at Northgate?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And why is that?
I was the resident manager.
Okay. Was that something that was part of your employment?
Yes, it was.
Okay. When you went home at the end of the day, what did you do?
Went up to my apartment, by cleaning up from the day of like leases or what I had laying there, preparing dinner.
Okay. Did anything of note happen while you were preparing dinner?
I'm sorry, what?
Did anything of note happen while you were preparing dinner?
Something that happened?
Yeah.
There was a knock at the door. My maintenance guy answered the door because I was like busy, like preparing dinner.
Okay.
He told me that I needed to come to the door. I went to the door, and a gentleman was standing there and said that tried to get a hold of his daughter for several days, him and his wife. Asked if he could have a key to get into the apartment. I told him I couldn't give him a key, but I could go down there and open up the apartment for him.
And what did you do?
When I got my keys and we proceeded down to the apartment.
Okay. And which apartment was it that he needed opened up?
2420 4th Street Northwest, apartment number 5.
Okay. Did you ever get this gentleman's name?
Gordon.
Okay. And you went to that apartment with Gordon. What did you do next?
I remember going to the door, and it seemed like it was locked because it wouldn't turn the knob. So I grabbed my keys and opened the door. Well, it clicked. It was like a little hard, but it clicked, so I knew it was locked, and gained entrance into the apartment.
Okay. Once you unlocked the door, what did you do?
Gordon went in first, and I followed behind him. And he went down towards the bedroom, and I stood in the kitchen area where I could see the bedroom door, or the bedroom area.
And then what did you see next?
Gordon coming out, and saying we need to call the police department.
Okay. And did you call the police?
I can't remember if it was myself or Gordon called the police, but one of us did.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that your maintenance man answered your door to your apartment.
Yes.
Who is the maintenance man?
Marty and Elle.
Okay. And why was Marty in your apartment?
We lived together.
Okay. You were romantically involved?
Yes.
Okay. For approximately how long?
About 10 years.
Okay. Now, you said Marty was the maintenance man. How long had he worked for Northgate Apartments as the maintenance man?
Probably almost 2 years.
And Marty lived with you, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Was living in the apartment part of Marty's compensation package from the apartments like it was yours?
Yeah, I guess basically probably. The owner knew he was living there.
Okay. But the apartment was for the resident manager, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said that Marty lived with you. Had you seen Marty earlier that day?
Yeah, we worked together that day.
Okay. What all did you all do together?
Worked, shopped, met up with friends once in a while at night.
Okay. With the two of you working together, were you working side by side? Were you working apart? How did that work?
And together.
Okay. And were there ever periods of time when you're working together that you and Marty were not within each other's eyesight?
Not really.
Okay. Now, you said not really. What does that
if
mean?
I was like cleaning and I needed maintenance done, the toilet fixed or a patch in the wall, he did that while and we were still in the same apartment, in the same area working together.
Now, you said that you and Marty lived together about 10 years. What was your relationship?
He was my fiance.
What were Marty's duties at Northgate Apartments?
Duties of a maintenance guy, repairing, lawn work. I guess that's basically it, repairing things.
Okay. When Marty would repair things, what would he do with them?
If it was something in, like if it's a toilet and apartment, and he did it right there.
What if it was something that couldn't be repaired in the apartment?
Screens.
Okay.
Um,
What would he do with those?
they would go to the shop
Okay. And there was a shop. Where was the shop located?
on the same grounds.
Okay. On the date that Gordon came knocking on your door and asked you to let him into Anita's apartment, was there something that needed repaired for that apartment?
A screen.
Okay. Did you see the screen?
After we got taken into the shop, yes.
Okay. Can you describe the screen?
The frame was bent, and there was a cut in it.
Was it, how can you describe the cut?
No, not really. I just know it was slashed.
Okay. And it was in the shop, correct?
Yes.
All right. Who put it in the shop, to your knowledge?
Maintenance guy, Marty.
Okay. And do you know when it was placed in the shop?
That morning when he walked through to, there was laundry rooms up there in between the units, and we would lock them up at night to prevent vandalism, and then they would get reopened up in the morning.
Okay. Can you describe the kind of screens that were at the apartments at Northgate?
The frames were probably like aluminum. They were easy to bend.
Okay. Were these expensive screens or?
No, probably what a general screen it would just be in an apartment.
Can you please describe the locks that were on the doors at the apartments at Northgate?
Bolt locks.
Okay. And what does that mean to you?
You had to have a key to entrance and to leave the apartment to have it locked.
So you couldn't just pull it shut behind you and it would lock?
No, you had to have the key to do it.
Were the locks changed in that in those apartments when people moved out?
Yes.
And what was the practice for doing that?
It was Shooks that came up and changed them.
Okay. And
Or-
Shooks is a lock company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shooks Locksmith. That's where we got our locks from.
Okay. And what would they do with the old locks when they'd take them off the doors?
We would keep them once in a while. If they were damaged, they went in the garbage.
Okay. Were locks ever recycled on doors?
Once in a while they were.
Okay. And was there ever a record that was kept of what lock got recycled onto what new door?
No.
Can you describe the keys to those locks?
What do you mean describe the key?
What was the key like physically?
It was probably about an inch wide on top. I mean, they were like heavy-duty keys.
Okay. Are these the kinds of keys that could be, well, let me ask a different question first off. How many keys were given out to apartment number 5 when Anita Knutson and Nichole Thomas were living in that apartment?
2.
Okay. And why is that?
That's for how many tenants are in that apartment. That's how many keys are issued out.
What was the policy with regards to copying of keys?
You couldn't.
Okay. It wasn't allowed?
No.
All right. Was it possible to copy keys?
No.
Okay. And why is that?
Because they were from the locksmith, and you had to have permission to have them made. And there was only a certain amount of people that could get those keys made.
Okay. In that time frame at 2007, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And could somebody just take that key to Shook's Locks and get that made without you knowing about it?
No.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for
No.
speculation. Overruled.
Okay, you can answer that.
I'm sorry, what?
You could answer the question.
No, there was only certain people on the list that could get those keys made.
Okay. And who were those people?
Myself and the owner, I know for sure.
Okay. And was a record kept if copies of those keys were requested?
I'm sorry, what?
Was there a record kept if copies of keys for an apartment were requested?
No,
Okay. Are you aware of whether or not keys were made for number 5, copies of keys?
I don't think so.
Okay. You never handled any request for a copy, is that fair
No.
to say?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I misunderstood your question.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. If you don't understand me, just tell me, okay? All right. And why was it that it had to go through management or ownership to get a key copy made?
That's the only way you could get a key made.
Was there a fee associated with it?
I'm sorry, what?
Was there a fee associated with that?
If there was a last key, yes.
Okay. Now you said that Marty would do a walkthrough of the apartment complex. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. How often did he do that?
Well, it's ever who wasn't busy or whatever. And we did it in the morning, and we did it about 10 o'clock every night,
Okay. About what time in the morning?
between 7 and 8.
Were you with Marty when he found the screen that he put in his shop?
No, he went and did the walkthrough himself.
Okay. How long was Marty away from you at the time that he did that walkthrough?
It only probably takes about 10 minutes.
And did you inspect the window that this screen may have come from yourself?
No, I just knew that when he brought the screen in, he told me what apartment it was.
Now, Marty is no longer employed with Northgate, is that right?
No.
When did Marty's employment there end?
New Year's Day on 2009.
That's pretty specific. Why do you know that?
It's when he committed suicide.
What was going on in Marty's life at that time?
There was a few things. He didn't get a job that he wanted. He wasn't happy with the job he had. He was diagnosed possible with Parkinson's disease. He lost a nephew or a niece that he was very fond of. I guess basically his family that was here moved away.
Was there anything going on in your relationship?
I thought everything was good.
You said that he'd lost a niece that he was very fond of. How long before Marty passed away had that happened?
Probably a few months. Don't know the exact date.
Okay. Did Marty have health insurance?
No, we didn't.
And you said his family moved away. Where'd they move to?
His mother moved to Animus to be closer to her sisters because they were all getting up in age. And he had a sister that moved to Minneapolis.
Okay. Was Marty close to his family?
Yes.
What were holidays like for Marty's family?
Well, I guess we always spent Thanksgiving and Christmas, those two main ones, all together as a family.
And so Thanksgiving and Christmas of 2008, which would have been the holidays just before Marty's suicide,
Yes.
did you spend those with Marty's family?
No.
What was Marty's relationship with alcohol like?
No, he drink like by everybody else. And
Did he drink?
yeah, I'm like after work or whatever, or like on a Friday, we'll go have a few drinks.
Okay. And what did you notice of his drinking in the time period leading up to when he committed suicide?
I didn't really see no difference.
Laura, did Marty own a knife?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I never seen one.
And you lived with him for 10 years.
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Sand?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Questions?
Ms. Knapp, thanks for coming in today. So just to clear a couple things up, you said you had been working at these apartments for 16 years, but then you said 1989 to 2012. I just want to make sure I got that right.
I'm estimating, I'm not sure. Oh, wait, no, I worked there longer than that.
Okay. That would be 23 years by my math, but
Yeah, I was going to say, all I know was 16 years.
okay, but so we're not sure of the dates.
Well, not when I started, but when I left there, yes.
So 2012 is when you left.
Yes.
Okay. When did you start dating Marty?
I don't know the exact year.
Can you give me a ballpark?
About 1998, 1999.
Okay. And I am not trying to say anything negative about the dead, but I'm going to ask you, did Marty ever use drugs that you know of?
No.
You sure?
Yeah, and
Okay. But
we
he
were
drank?
together for like 10 years.
But he drank?
I'm sorry, what?
But he did drink, you said earlier?
Well, like on a Friday night when, like the end of the week, yes.
Okay. And now you said that Marty was the maintenance man, correct?
Yes.
And you were the general manager of the apartments?
I was the resident manager.
Resident manager. And you said Marty didn't have a knife?
I'm sorry, what?
You had said Marty didn't have a knife?
No,
Did he ever have to use tools in his job, do you know?
yes, there'd be like a carpenter knife, a box knife.
Okay, but a
But
knife.
He never carried it with him. It was only during work hours.
Okay. Okay. That was Marty working the day that Anita's body was discovered?
Yes.
Okay. Did you talk to Marty at all about what happened to Anita?
No,
You guys didn't discuss it?
no. I just thought the screen that needed to be repaired or whatever. No, we didn't discuss Anita's body or nothing like that.
So after you went in to the apartment with Mr. Knudsen and Marty and you found Anita's dead body, you guys didn't discuss that at all? There was no talk about it?
No.
Okay. Now, the state's attorney had asked you about this screen that had been slashed, correct?
Yes.
When's the first time you saw that screen?
That morning when I was in the shop.
You were in the shop with Marty?
Yes.
Okay. Where was the screen? In the shop?
Yes.
Okay. And you were in there with Marty, correct?
Yes.
How did the screen get in the shop? Did Marty bring it in there?
He picked it up and brought it into the shop.
Do you know where he found it?
He said outside that window.
Okay. Did Marty talk to you about a curtain or rods at all being outside that window?
No,
He didn't tell you that he threw a curtain rod and curtains back into the window?
no, there was no mention of a curtain rod or a curtain.
Okay. Do you know where specifically on the property the screen was when Marty picked it up, or wherever, however he got it to the shop?
Towards the sidewalk.
Do you remember talking to police officers at all?
Well, like up at the apartments?
Yeah, after Anita's death. Were you interviewed by police?
I don't recall really talking to.
You were interviewed by Detective Plessis on June 6th. Do you recall that?
I'm sorry, what?
You were interviewed by Detective Plessis on June 6th. Do you recall that?
Down at the police station, yes,
Yeah.
but not up at the apartments.
Okay, thank you. Do you recall Detective Plessis discussing the lock with you?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you recall Detective Plessis discussing the lock with you? I apologize if you're having trouble hearing.
No, I don't.
No? If I showed you a transcript of the interview you had with Detective Plessis, might that help you refresh your recollection?
Could?
Okay.
When I said that because the door was like
Stop
sticking.
talking, ma'am, please. Ma'am, you have to wait for him to ask you a question.
Oh.
Have you had a chance to read through that, to review it? Ms. Knapp, have you had a chance to read?
Yes, I'm
It's just got
trying.
sections on
Yeah,
it.
I'm just trying to catch this.
Now, Ms. Knapp, after reviewing that, do you recall what you said to Mr. Plessis when he asked you if the door was locked for sure?
Yeah, it was sometimes those doors stick. I don't know if it's
Okay.
because of the dirt or whatever.
Thank
they
you,
stick,
thank
but
you.
then
I appreciate it.
I heard it click.
Do you remember calling Detective Goodman about a tip from the landing bar?
What?
Do you remember calling Detective Goodman about a tip you had heard at the landing bar in Minot?
No,
You don't.
no.
Those are the only questions I had, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Knapp.
Ms. Sorgan, do you have any redirect, ma'am?
Just briefly. Laura, Mr. Sand asked you about an interview on June 6th at the police department, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was that with Officer Plessis or Detective Goodman?
I don't recall what officer it was.
Okay. And Mr. Sand asked you about when you first saw the screen in the shop with Marty. What drew your attention to the screen?
What was the wettest screen?
What drew your attention to the screen that you noticed it?
He showed it to me
Marty pointed it out to you?
in the shop, yeah.
Okay.
He says, I put the screen over here.
Okay. And Mr. Sand asked you about the statement that you had made about sometimes the door sticks, but you had some additional information to add on that, correct?
Yes.
And what is that?
Once in a while, the doors do stick because of the wind blowing in with debris, dirt, dust. But After you work it a bit, it'll click, then you know it's unlocked.
Okay. Now, to clarify, did you try the door without putting a key in it first on June 4th?
Yes,
And you were aware that the doors sometimes stick. Did you take that into account when you tried to open it?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Sustained.
Okay. How much effort did you put in before you started using a key?
I'm sorry, what?
How much effort did you put into opening the door before you started using a key?
I turned the knob, whatever, and they didn't want to, that's how I knew it was locked. I put the key in, jiggled it a little bit, and then it clicked, and then I turned the knob, and the door opened.
Okay. What did you hear when you used the key?
The click,
Okay. And what did that mean to you?
the door was unlocked.
The door was unlocked once you had used the key.
After I used the key, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Mr. Sand?
Just briefly, Your Honor. So the state just asked you about you seeing the screen, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's marked as Defense Exhibit 1.
Okay.
Actually, that would be defense A.
Is that the screen that you recall seeing?
No, I don't recall exactly if it's that screen or not, because I'm not sure if that's our shop.
I'm going to show this to you one more time, Ms. Knapp. Take a good look at it. Does that look like your shop and the screen that was in it?
I don't recall how the shop was really set up. I don't know if that was in our shop.
So do you remember the screen? And if you don't remember all the events of that day, that's okay. But does that look like the screen in the shop that you saw with Marty that morning?
If we're going to talk about this exhibit, it should be offered, Mr. Sand.
I am offering it, Your Honor.
Permission
Are
of
we
voir dire the
leaving it
witness
one
with.
or A? Should be A.
I have it marked as 1, but I can mark it as A, if Your Honor, if that's
It'll
what
be
we're doing.
Defense Exhibit A. Ms. Sorgan, is there any objection?
May I voir dire the witness with regards to the exhibit, Your Honor?
Have you seen the exhibit?
Briefly.
All right, you may.
Okay. Ms. Knapp, were you present when that photograph was taken?
I'm sorry, what?
Were you present when that photograph was taken?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Foundation, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand?
I'm simply asking if she, I'll withdraw it and get it in later, Your Honor, but I'm simply asking if she
You've offered
recognizes this screen.
the exhibit. Are you withdrawing your offer of the exhibit?
If we're questioning the witness, I'd like to ask her a couple more questions if the state's.
I'm not talking about the witness. I'm talking about, are you voir diring more for the exhibit, or you got other questions?
I'm asking in voir dire if you have seen that screen, if that's the screen that you have knowledge of.
I know our screens had a white frame.
Again, I'm going to stop you, Mr. Sand. If we're talking about this exhibit, it has to be in. She's objected. Foundation. Do you have a response to the foundation?
I am continuing the voir dire that she began to try to establish foundation, Your Honor. Is that all right?
It is, but not with regard to whether she recognizes the screen or not.
Okay. Does this look like the shop?
Your Honor, objection.
I will withdraw it and try to get it in later then, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you very much. Ms. Knapp, you recall looking at the screen you said earlier?
Yes, I glanced over at it, yes.
Okay. What do you recall that it looked like?
The frame was bent and there was a slash in it.
Okay. Do you remember what the slash looked like?
No, I just know it was cut.
Okay. Do you know if it was cut more than once?
Objection, asked and answered. She doesn't remember.
I didn't ask.
Overruled,
Oh.
not asked and answered.
Sorry, Your Honor.
You can answer it, ma'am. Do you know if it was cut more than once?
I don't recall that, if it was or not.
Okay. Now I'm going to move back to Marty. And I know this is probably difficult for you to discuss, but so you had testified earlier Marty committed suicide on New Year's Eve.
Objection, beyond scope of redirect.
Mr. Sand?
I'll withdraw, Your Honor. No further questions. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Sorgan, is this witness here by subpoena?
She is, Your Honor.
Is she excused from that subpoena?
She is, Your Honor.
Any objections, Mr. Sand?
Yeah, we would like to keep her under the state subpoena, Your Honor.
The state is releasing her from her subpoena.
You want to keep her under your subpoena?
We do not have a subpoena on her right now.
Then she's free to come and go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You may come and go as you please, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have another witness, Ms. Sorgan?
Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Nelson will be performing this examination.
State calls Dale Plessis.
All right.
I'll go get him.
Thank you. Officer, if you'll come up here first, please. She's going to swear you an oath.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Take a seat over here, please. Please watch the footing stuff. Once you're seated, yeah, I know the mic's on. Just make sure it's kind of aimed at your chin. Okay?
At my chin, okay.
All right, Mr. Nelson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you state your name for the record, please?
It's Dale Plessis.
And you don't testify as much in court anymore, so if you could spell your last name for the benefit of the court reporter.
It's Plessas.
Okay. And where are you currently employed?
The Minot Police Department, City of Minot.
And what do you do for the Minot Police Department?
I am the investigations commander, but right now I'm the interim chief of police.
Okay. Now, your current rank is that of captain, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Could you give us a rundown of your training and experience, please?
I've been a police officer in Minot will be 24 years coming in September. I've attended the North Dakota Peace Officers Academy, various other trainings throughout the 24 years, and I've attended the FBI National Academy.
Now, what was your role in this case?
I was the initial officer responding in 2007.
So you were a patrol officer at the time, is that correct?
Correct, I was a patrol officer.
And could you just give us a brief explanation of what a patrol officer does?
Patrolling the city of Minot, handled accidents, criminal investigations, minor criminal investigations, respond to emergencies.
So on the 4th of June of 2007, did you respond to an emergency that dispatch sent you to involving this matter?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and where were you dispatched to?
I was dispatched to 24. I'm going to have a hard time remembering the address. I think it was 24.
Would it be
20.
24th Street?
Say that again.
24th Street?
Yeah, apartment number 5.
Okay. And that's in Minot, Ward County?
Correct.
And what happened when you got there?
I was dispatched for a potential unattended death or a deceased female. So I was at the very end of my shift at that day, must have been around 5 o'clock, and I arrived on scene and made contact with the reporting party.
Would that be Gordon Knutson?
I think the reporting party was Laura Knapp.
Okay. So Laura Knapp was the one that called. When you say reporting party, you mean the person who called 911?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And was Gordon there as well?
He was.
Okay. And what happened next?
They directed me to the apartment, and Laura wanted to go in and show me where she was. I told her to wait outside. She motioned down the hallway, and I went to the bedroom where she was located.
And what did you find?
I found someone who was later identified as Anita Knutson, deceased in the bed.
And what did you do at that point?
I had a firefighter who had just arrived on scene. I'd asked them to stand outside and wait. Once I believed that she was deceased, I had him come in to verify. After he verified, I had him leave the scene, and at that time, community ambulance had arrived on scene, a paramedic, and I wanted them to verify, so I had them come in and just ensure that she, in fact, was deceased.
So the firefighter would have been there basically to perform CPR potentially or something like that. Is that accurate?
Correct. It's standard procedures in the fire department in case there's something medical that we can do.
And Anita was long past that point. Is that accurate?
Objection leading, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Was there any life-saving that would have done anything for Ms. Knutson?
The firefighter indicated she was cold to the touch, and therefore he didn't believe there was anything to be done.
Okay. What happened next?
I had them leave the scene. I secured the apartment by securing the front door, standing outside of the front door. That's just standard procedure. Waited for investigators to arrive.
Did investigators come?
Yes, they did.
And who were those investigators?
I recall Bob Bernard was the first investigator on scene. I don't recall after that. Other officers also arrived.
And Mr. Barnard also, was he a detective with the Minot Police Department?
Correct, he was.
Okay. And what happened after that point?
After that point, I was contacted by my lieutenant in charge of my shift, and he instructed me to turn the crime scene over to another officer from the afternoon shift and to return to the PD.
And did you have an issue with that?
I didn't like that, no, but it was an order given to me, so.
Okay. So did you follow that order then
I did.
and return to the PD?
Yes.
Okay. Did that pretty much end your involvement in the case?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Now, later in your career, were you involved in the detective side of things as far as the Minot Police Department?
Many years later, I became the commander of the investigations division.
Okay. So you've been with the Minot Police Department for, you said 24 years at this point?
Correct. In September, it'll be 24 years.
Okay. So that does include the entire period from June 4th of 2007 when Anita is discovered to when this case got charged out in March of 2022.
Correct.
Plus stuff on either end.
Yes.
Okay. Were you involved in any decision making on trying to find or work with detectives at the Minot Police Department to work the case to try to crack the case?
Yes, I was. When I took over the investigations unit, I was instructed by Chief Klug to find a way to get the case reviewed again and started again. Not necessarily started again, but readdressed.
Were there any difficulties with that?
Yes. Chief Klug was the commander of investigations. Two commanders in front of me. Well, Chief Klug and Justin Sunheim were both commanders of the investigations unit, and they both indicated that manpower was an issue for both of them in trying to get to that point. What he asked me to do was find a way to get logistics and get the investigation going again.
Now, has manpower been, unfortunately, a persistent issue with the Minot Police Department?
Yes, as with all law enforcement agents, but definitely Minot PD has been down between 10 and 15, even more than that, since around that time. So
does that cover patrol officers, detectives, the whole kit and caboodle?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's across the board.
Now, over those 15 years between 2007 and 2022, how has crime changed in the city of Minot?
There was a couple of things that really impacted the crime in Minot. The flood being one of them, and the oil boom in western North Dakota being another. And so crime has increased. We're seeing a lot more violent crime than we ever have prior to that.
So as a result of that, are detectives and other law enforcement officers in the Minot police community stretched a little thinner?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Were you involved in the decision to reach out to potentially podcasters or syndicated television shows, that sort of thing?
We never reached out to them. They reached out to us.
That's what I meant. So they reached out to the Minot Police Department, and you had to make a decision on whether or not you were going to cooperate. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. And what was that decision?
Well, Cold Justice reached out to us and indicated that they had some things that they could provide us that were attractive to us. Logistics was a major one. DNA experts, forensic experts, and cold case investigator assistants. So we reviewed all that, made a decision that with their logistics, we would be able to move forward with this investigation a lot smoother than on our own.
So was that due to the logistical support that the decision was made to utilize them?
That was the major component, and is logistics.
Did their help make it easier for the Minot Police Department to do the work necessary for this case?
It allowed us to move a lot quicker, so yes.
Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
It's a slightly different one than we have back home. I'm handing you 2 items. If you could take a look at those and let me know if you recognize those. You want to just hand that back to me when you're done?
Yes, I do.
And
Yes,
what,
I do recognize those.
And what are these documents?
They're maps. One's a map of the city of Minot with the full city limits, and another one is a zoomed-in portion of the city of Minot.
And are these true and accurate copies of map of the city of Minot?
Yes, they appear to be.
Okay. The state moves to introduce Exhibit 2A and 2B into evidence, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you have any objections?
I'd need to come take a look at them, Your Honor. I
You may.
can't see them from here. Thank you. Your Honor, if I could ask, I know there's two maps up there. One was offered as a map of the city of Minot. Was the other one offered as a second map of the city of Minot?
It was offered as a blow-up portion of map A.
No objection.
Plaintiff's exhibits 2A and 2B will be received without objection.
And permission to publish, Your Honor?
Denied. I'm not going to let you pass those two sacks.
Oh, no, Your Honor, we've got an easel right here, and we've got clips to just show where places are in Minot. We're not going to pass it down the line.
Then you can.
Thank you, Your Honor. And permission for the witness to come down for demonstrative, Your Honor?
You'll need a microphone.
I'll sit at the desk and you can use this one.
Me.
And Captain Plus says, I can't see what you're doing over there, but if you could take a sticky note here that I'm going to pass to you. And use that to indicate the location of 2420 4th Street Northwest in Minot, Ward County.
Which exhibit is he on?
That's 2A.
Okay, I've marked that. Put my glasses on.
And Captain Plus says if you could do it the same with 2B, which is the blow-up of 2A. And I have no further questions at the time. Captain Plessis, if I could get that microphone back from you.
Okay, that's done.
Let me make sure it's off. Yeah, it's on. Oh, the stickies? Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Sand, do you have any questions for Captain Plessis?
I do, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Captain Plessis, the state discussed with you MPD's numbers being down in terms of officers, correct?
Correct.
And you had said that you guys, all law enforcement has struggled, but you have struggled more, right?
I would say, I can't say more, but we are definitely struggling, yes.
What reasons do you think that's for?
There are multiple reasons. The police in general are struggling because of the perception of law enforcement, I guess. There's multiple reasons why we're down.
Did your police chief just step down?
Yes, he did.
Okay, do you know why?
He was investigated on a administrative investigation, and
Okay.
he, at the end of that investigation, chose to step down.
What do you know about that investigation?
Objection on irrelevance.
I believe it has extreme relevance, Your Honor, especially given what's gone on.
I'll overrule your objection. Please make sure you connect it, Mr.
I
Sand.
will, Your Honor.
What do I know about the investigation?
Yes.
I was involved in the investigation, but I guess I didn't conduct the investigation.
Did you review the report when it was completed?
I have read the report. I can't say that I've read it extremely thoroughly, but I have read the report.
And I'm guessing you're aware of the new report regarding Sergeant McLeod.
Yes, I am.
Okay, have you read that?
I have read through that. I have not in depth read
Are
it.
you aware of the allegations of destruction of text messages and
Objection,
files?
Your Honor. Relevance to the
Extreme
current investigation.
relevance, Your Honor. That's
Okay, can I have you approach the bench, please? All right, Mr. Sand, you can ask your question with regard to Officer Pless's, Captain Pless's, in relation to the manpower issues that the police department is having now.
well, my plan is to ask the same question I just asked, Your Honor. Is that objection being overruled or sustained?
Ask the question again.
Are you aware of the allegations of destroying of text messages and files in the new investigative report?
Objection, Your Honor, as to relevance.
Again, what's the relevance of that, Mr. Sand?
The relevance, Your Honor, is that the officers working on this report were involved in that.
The objection is sustained. We're talking about an incident in 2007, not the report.
Okay. In 2007, do you recall if MPD had manpower issues?
I don't recall what they were at that time, no.
Okay. What was your rank in 2007?
I was a senior officer.
Were you the first officer on scene?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Did you photograph anything at the scene?
No, I did not.
Did you observe anything at the scene?
I observed things at the scene.
Okay. Did you observe a curtain or a curtain rod at the scene?
I don't recall that.
Okay. What do you recall when you walked into the scene?
Like I said before, I recall being motioned down the hallway and finding Anita Knudsen on the bed.
Do you recall any involvement with Officer Klug in 2007 on this case?
I do not.
Do you remember him being involved in the case?
I do not.
Okay. Did you talk with Gordon Knudsen when you got on the scene at all?
I don't recall specifically talking to him, but I remember him being there.
Do you recall observing a ripped screen when you were at the scene?
No.
Or a slashed screen?
I did not see the screen, no.
Okay. Did you talk to the maintenance man, Mr. Marty Annell, when you were there?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What time did you leave the scene?
I'm not sure that I notated that. I was not on the scene for a long time.
Approximately how long? I know it was a long time.
I would guess, and this 17 years ago, but my guess would be maybe an hour at most.
Okay. What officers were there while you were there?
Shane Haug, Chuck LeBoy, Sergeant Haug, Larry Haug, Bob Bernard. Those are the officers I can recall.
Okay. Those are the only questions I have.
Mr. Nelson, do you have any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Is this officer here by subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is he excused?
He is excused, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you have an objection?
No, sir.
All right, officer, you may come and go as you please. Thank you. Next witness.
State calls Dan Strandberg, Your Honor.
I'll have you come up here, officer. She's going to swear you an oath.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Then have a seat over here, please. Once you're seated, just try to adjust the mic so it's aimed at your chin. And we'll start with the states, and then we'll go to the defense. Mr. Nelson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Dan Strandberg.
And like with the last gentleman that testified, we haven't had you testify for a while. So if you could spell your last name for the court, please.
Strandberg.
Okay. And are you currently employed, Mr. Sandberg?
I am not.
Okay. Were you formerly employed?
I was.
Could you give us a brief rundown of your work history?
Almost 30 years at the Minot Police Department. Retired there as captain in charge of investigations. Then I went and worked for the Department of Corrections for 6 years as a probation officer.
Now, that time that you were approximately 30 years, you said, at the Minot Police Department?
Yeah, 29 and change.
29 and change. And what were roughly the dates on that?
Oh, May 2nd, I think it was 1986, to July 31st, 2015.
So you remember specifically the day, but you have trouble with the year?
Oh, I'm pretty sure that was 1986. I just had to think about it for a second.
Okay. Now, you were a licensed peace officer at the time?
At the Minot Police Department, I started as a civilian dispatcher, did that for, I suppose, a couple of years, and then was licensed after that.
Okay. Now, what sort of training and experience did you have while you were with the Minot Police Department?
Lots of training, thousands of hours of law enforcement training.
Okay. Now, on the 4th of June of 2007, were you sent out on a call relating to this case?
Yes.
And what was the nature of that call?
I got a voicemail on my cell phone from the PD that Officer Barnard was at a crime scene and requested that I respond to it.
And did you respond to that scene?
I did.
Was that at 2420 4th Street Northwest
Yes.
in Minot?
Yes.
That's in Ward County?
Yes.
What happened next?
I got the call. I went to the PD and got a digital camera. Sergeant Sunbakken was working on a search warrant for the residents, and I responded to the residents, started taking some photos of some of the outside of the residents, waiting for the search warrant.
Okay. Showing opposing counsel what's been marked as States Exhibit 3A through F and 4A through 4D. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I've handed you a stack of documents there. If you could look through those and tell me if you recognize them. recognize those?
Yeah, they're photographs. They're photographs that I took of the general scene.
Is that those photographs the outside of the apartment?
Yes.
Okay. And are these true and accurate copies of the photographs that you took?
Yes.
State moves to introduce these exhibits into evidence, Your Honor.
And it consists of 6 under 3 and 4 under the 4. 10 exhibits.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Sand, do you have
No
any
objection,
objections?
Your Honor.
All right. States exhibits 3A through 3F and 4A through 4D are received without objection.
Now, what happened next? You said you were talking about the search warrant.
The search warrant got signed, and we entered the apartment.
And what happened at that point?
We went through the apartment. You walk in, there's a living room. Behind that, there's a kitchen. Hallway goes to your right. As you go down the hallway, you're going to the west. There's a bathroom on your left. There's a bedroom straight ahead and a bedroom at the end of the hallway on the right.
Okay. Now, did you take photographs within the apartment as well as the photographs you took outside the apartment?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I've got another batch of photographs for you now. 5A and B. Just because we've got multiple batches, we'll do this one batch at a time.
Okay.
Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes.
And are these photographs of Anita's apartment?
Yes.
Okay, are they true and accurate copies of photographs?
Yes.
You took these photographs?
Yes.
State moves to enter 5A and 5B.
Mr. Sand?
No objection, Your Honor.
States exhibits 5A and 5B will be received without objection.
A couple new photographs there. Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes.
Are you the one that took these photographs?
Yes.
And what are these photographs?
These are photographs of the body.
Okay, and are these true and accurate copies of the photographs?
Yes.
State moves to enter 6A and 6B into evidence.
Mr. Sand?
No objection.
Plaintiff's exhibits 6A and 6B are received without objection.
And here we have more photographs. It's a bit of a stack, so if you want to take a moment to look through all those. Now, are these all photographs that you took at the scene?
Yes.
Are they true and accurate copies of the photographs that you took?
Yes.
State moves to introduce exhibits 7A through S into evidence.
Mr. Sand?
If I just may ask, are these the ones that were in that blue trapper keeper?
Yes.
No objection, Your Honor.
Could you count that up? Because I'm
19 photos.
19.
States exhibits 7A through 7S will be received without objection. You did say no objection, right, Mr. Sand?
Yep, no objection, sir.
Thank you. So what happened next?
Well, we started, as we were taking these pictures, we're taking items and evidence, and I'm photographing them, taking the items, and turning them over to Sergeant Sunbach, and he's creating the inventory.
So you're taking things that you believe could be of evidentiary value?
Yes.
What exactly does, when you look at a scene like that, what makes something of value versus something that's not of value?
Proximity to, in this case, the victim. I mean, one item in there is a knife. That would be something of interest. Anything that the victim or suspect or other people may have had, I'll call it, contact with.
So
Things that seem unusual.
you mentioned the knife. And there's a photograph of the knife that was just entered into evidence.
There's more than one photograph
More
of the
than one.
knife.
Were there other knives located?
No.
Was there blood on that knife?
Yes, there was what appeared to be blood on the knife.
You've seen blood on things before in your not just necessarily as an officer, but in your everyday life.
Yes.
And was that pretty consistent with what blood looks like on something?
Yes.
Okay. You had an opportunity to actually see the body of Anita Knudsen?
Yes.
And was it apparent how she died?
Well, when we got there and entered the room, she's laying on her belly or on her chest, I'll call it. And we'd lifted, she had a nightgown on, or not a nightgown, but a bathrobe on. And we lifted the bathrobe looking for any indications of any marks or anything on the back, but didn't find any. And after we had taken everything that was kind of like on top of the body, we brought in a big sheet of like white paper.
So
and
like butcher paper? Like
yeah,
probably about yay wide?
there's those
Yeah.
rolls that are about like, I suppose, 4 feet wide, and I don't know how big a roll it is, 200 feet or whatever they are. We brought in a piece of that from the PD and laid it down, and we rolled the body onto the paper.
And why did you do that?
We're trying to preserve any evidence that might be on her, so it would fall on the paper rather than in the carpet or whatever kind of flooring they have.
So in an apartment like that, there's carpeting in this apartment, in the bedroom.
I couldn't swear to that, but I think there was.
Okay. So it's basically to make sure that it didn't, if something was of value, that it didn't get lost.
Yes.
Okay. So what happened next?
We rolled her onto the paper, and we could see a wound like at her sternum, on the left side of the sternum. I would say it was slightly above like the nipple line in her chest.
Okay. Was it clear that that was a stabbing?
Yes.
Why was it clear?
It appeared to be a knife wound.
Okay. So that would make the knife that was found potentially very valuable.
Yes.
Okay. What happened next in the investigation?
Dr. Smith was our county coroner. I called him and spoke to him, and he authorized release of the body to the state medical examiner. We called community ambulance, and Cliff Black came and responded. And
Was he with the ambulance?
yeah, Cliff was a
Okay.
longtime ambulance driver.
Please continue.
He took the body and the bedding and the piece of white paper and loaded it up and took it to the medical examiner's office in Bismarck.
Okay. Now, as part of the investigation, was a screen brought to your attention?
A screen, yes.
Okay. A window screen specifically.
Yes.
How did that come to your attention?
Well, there was not a screen in the window when we arrived. And
Would you have expected a screen to be there?
yes.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that the maintenance guy at the apartment complex had picked that screen up. I believe it was the morning before. It was hanging on the window. And
Did he take you to the screen?
he did. It was in his shop.
Okay. And you saw the screen in the shop?
I did.
Showing you as it's marked as states 8A and 8B. Do you recognize those photos?
Yes.
Are you the one that took these photos?
Yes.
Are they true and accurate copies of those photos?
Yes.
State moves to enter 8A and 8B into evidence.
No objection.
States Exhibit 8A and 8B will be received without objection.
What did you do next with your involvement in the case?
Um,
Well, let me back up a bit. Did you take
we're
that
going to have
screen?
to back up a little bit because,
Did you take that screen into evidence?
yes.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, it appeared to be possibly a point of entry or exit. The screen was cut. It was damaged. It was bent.
Now, at this point in an investigation, and we're talking about more investigations broadly, not necessarily this one, do you have all the answers in the case?
No.
So you're collecting that because you think it might be valuable, not necessarily because it is valuable.
Yes.
Okay. So we've got that established. What happened next in your involvement in the investigation?
Well, we're kind of jumping around here because the pictures of the screen and some of the pictures of the outside were taken like Tuesday morning on the 5th. And going back to the 4th when we were processing the scene, and Black came and got the body. We continued to process the scene and take things that we thought would be of evidentiary value.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, you said some of those pictures were taken the next day,
Yes.
but they still are a fair, accurate representation of what, say, the outside of the building would look like and things of that nature.
Yes.
Okay, please continue.
After we kind of cleared the scene, but had patrol keep the scene secure, and we left for the night and started again the next day, and that's where some of these pictures were taken, were the next day.
So what happened next in the investigation at that point?
I know that we photographed some footprints that were outside the window. I at least attempted to make a cast of those footprints. sprayed fixer on them and poured plaster of Paris in them. And we did come up with something anyway.
Were you able to figure out whose footprints those were?
Yeah, from looking at the photographs, and we compared the maintenance guy's shoes, and it was not his. And at one point, I had Mr. Knutson bring his shoes in.
You're talking Gordon Knutson?
Yes, bring his shoes in, and they matched his shoes, and he had been standing there at one point.
So he was standing right outside the window?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Now please continue.
Well, from there, we pretty much cleared it as a crime scene and left it unsecure, and kind of started interviewing people. Like,
who did you interview?
Lots of people. Michael Van was one of the early people.
Who was that?
Michael Van was a local guy, I suppose, early 20s. He knew Anita. He would have been the last person who had contact with Anita's phone anyway. There was text conversations going into like about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning into Sunday.
Sunday the 3rd.
Sunday the 3rd.
Okay. So the 3rd of June.
Yes.
Okay. Please continue.
Yeah, and Van told me that they were texting, and he was at his buddy's place, Jason Rudd. It sounded like there was a party going on there. And at some point, everybody left the party, and I think they went to McDonald's except for Michael Van.
Did you look into Michael Van as a suspect?
Yes.
And what was the result of the investigation into Michael Van?
He denied any involvement. We could not really tie any physical evidence into Michael Van that I'm aware of.
So because there was no evidence of his involvement, you cleared him, so to speak?
I guess as clear as anybody was.
Okay. In the course of your investigation, did you obtain the defendant's phone bill from the time period of May 24 of 07 to June 23rd of 07?
Yes.
How did you obtain that phone bill?
Via subpoena.
And who did you subpoena?
I know we subpoenaed Alltel, and it's not coming to me. But they were for different phone records.
Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
And what is that document?
That is phone statement from Alltel for Ms. Rice's phone.
Okay. Now, there are some alterations to that bill, are there not? There's a photocopy of a posted note on the front page, and there's some highlighting.
There is.
Other than that, are there any alterations to the information inside?
Not that I can see.
Okay. And the post-it note of the photocopy of the post-it note on the front, does it appear to obscure anything, any information behind that?
Yeah, there's some letters that are obscured.
Okay. But this is the phone bill that was obtained from Altel for Ms. Rice.
Yes.
The state moves to enter this into evidence, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand.
I'm going to object, Your Honor, on a couple of grounds. Just paging through it, there's highlighting and alterations on it. Mr. Strandberg's not the custodian of this record through Altel, and he didn't even know that's who was subpoenaed. So it doesn't seem like it's a record that's properly kept. It's got highlighting in multiple places on it as well. So we're going to object.
First off, Mr. Nelson, what's the exhibit number or letter?
It's Exhibit 18, Your Honor, and it's 6 pages long.
You heard the objection. Do you have any other information?
Well, Your Honor, unfortunately, this is the best evidence rule. This is the only information that's available right now because Altel is a defunct company. We do not have someone from Altel. We have the witness here who is willing to testify and did testify that this is the document that he received from Altel. So I believe the foundation has been laid.
Over your objection, Mr. Sand, the court will receive Plaintiff's Exhibit 18.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you have any cross-examination?
I do, sir. Thank you. So you go by Mr. Strandberg now, is that correct? Used to be Lieutenant Strandberg?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Now you took photographs at the scene.
Yes,
You photographed a knife.
I did.
Do you still have those exhibits?
Yes, I do. I'm trying to keep them separate, the exhibits.
Look through your report, and I noticed you reference taking a picture here. Can you read what exhibit that is?
It says 7J.
What do you see in that picture?
I see the knife on a piece of legal pad, paper, and a scale.
Like a ruler?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything particular about the knife you see?
I think-
Mr. Sand, are you on mute?
Is you having trouble picking me up? Can you hear me now? Is there another one of these mics I can use?
I don't.
Seems to be a recurring problem.
We only have two.
Okay.
One on each table.
Well, if this works, I'll just hold it like this then. What do you see on the knife where the lock is?
You mean where the
Yeah, right here.
Indian with the headdress?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a medallion Indian with a headdress.
Okay. Okay. And you took a picture of the other side of this knife as
Yeah.
well, correct? Is that this exhibit 7I?
Yes.
Okay. And in 7J, where that Indian with the headdress is what do you see on this side in 7I?
The medallion's missing.
Okay. It's not there. Okay. Did you take any other photographs of this knife that you recall?
There should
On
be
the bed
some
here?
on the bed.
Mr. Strandberg, I'll just have you run through 7C through 7H here one more time.
Okay.
in those photos, do you see the same thing, that the Indian head's missing on the other side?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to keep these up there, or do you mind if I put them down here?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
If I need to reference again, I'll ask.
Back up. All right, thanks. You have the screen there, I see.
Yes.
Before you got here, I had some trouble with this photo, so I appreciate you having it. So this is 8A, 8B, correct?
I'd have to read, but
Okay, sorry.
yes.
Okay. Do you recall seeing that screen?
Yes.
Where did you see it?
It was in, I'll call it Mr. Nell's shop.
Mr. Anel, and he's the maintenance man.
Yes.
Okay. You were in that shop,
Yes.
and he was with you.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I know it was a long time ago. Okay. Did he tell you when he had brought that screen to the shop?
He said that he had, sounds like he, in the mornings, he kind of takes a stroll around the complex.
Okay.
And he saw it hanging there, and a pretty common thing for tenants to lock themselves out of their apartments
Okay.
and like break in through a window or something.
Yeah.
So he took it from the window.
Okay. He took it from the window itself.
Yes.
We had testimony earlier that it was found 100 yards from that building. Does that make any sense to you?
Does not make any sense to me.
Okay. Did he say it was still in the window when he found it?
That, yes. That's my memory.
And he took it out of the window.
Yes.
Do you notice anything wrong with the screen?
Well, it's been cut
It's been cut.
and it's bent up. Yeah.
Has it been cut once or twice, does it look like?
I'm gonna describe it as like a backwards L-shaped cut.
Okay, I'll take that. Thank you. How long were you at the scene, Mr. Strandberg?
Well, it was June 4th, and I got the call 6 o'clock-ish is my memory,
Okay.
and we were there till after dark,
Okay.
so 5-6 hours.
Okay. And I assume a case like this, there was a lot of follow-up.
Yes,
Okay. Did you conduct any interviews?
I did.
Do you remember talking to a woman named Rebecca Ehrman?
I do.
Do you remember her telling you about a Native American man with a bloody shirt running from the scene?
She said that there was a Native American man running, I believe, on 4th Street, northbound, and that he had some sort of stain on his shirt. She said it could have been blood.
Remember how tall she said he was? 6'2", does that sound right?
I think 6'2", early 20s, 200 pounds.
Okay.
We did identify that person.
Okay. Did you have any investigation into a man named Jerron Vivier?
Yes.
Did you talk to Mr. Vivier?
About this?
Yes.
I was present when he was interviewed, I believe.
Okay. What do you recall from that?
He was represented, is my memory, at that time,
Okay.
and he denied any involvement.
How long did that interview go on for?
I'm not sure.
Were you there?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know where it took place?
It was in the, well, my memory is it was in the bullpen at the PD at Barnard's desk.
Okay. Do you know who the attorney was he had with him?
I think it was Ryan Sandberg.
Okay. Local Minot defense attorney.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much homework you did into Mr. Vivier?
Me?
Yeah.
Involving this incident?
Involving any incident.
I had investigated a case 2 or 3 weeks earlier It was a GSI case,
What does GSI mean?
I
Your Honor, I'm
suppose.
going to object as to relevance.
Mr. Sand, where are we going?
I'm asking about his investigation into Mr. Vivier, and he's telling me about what led to Mr. Vivier's investigation and the questioning of him.
No, that's not what you asked. You're asking about a different case.
He's telling me about a different case as the result of the investigation. I'm sure that's why they looked into Mr. Vivier.
I'm going to sustain the objection unless you lay more foundation as to how it's connected here.
Okay. Do you know why you were looking into Mr. Vivier as a suspect in this case?
I had investigated Mr. Vivier on a GSI case,
Thank you, sir. What does GSI stand for?
gross sexual imposition.
Okay. Now, I don't know if everybody knows what gross sexual imposition is, but in North Dakota, that's a rape case. Would you say that?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is testifying at this point.
I'm on cross.
Overruled. You can ask that.
A juryman would call it a rape.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do you remember anything particular about this GSI case?
It started at a party in like at those apartments. There's like 3 buildings, 320, 324, and 300, 320, and 324, I think.
I got this map.
27th Avenue Northwest.
Take a look at it.
Sure. You want me to stand up? Come over there?
Sure, we can share the mic. Can you show me where on the map those apartments are?
It'll be right here.
Okay, where's the crime scene?
Which crime scene?
Anita Knudsen's murder scene.
Right here.
Can you hear them? You guys, if you're going to stop, if you're going to share that mic, you need to actually use it. So
Sorry. Stan, this is where Anita Knudsen's murder happened. That was testified to earlier, correct? Right around here?
Yes.
Thank you. And could you point to where the Devon Vivier rape happened, that he was accused of rape?
Well, I'll say that it started here, and they drove to a park that's kind of over here, and that's where the rape happened.
But the party where this took place, you're saying, was right up here.
Yes.
Sir,
Your
that's
Honor,
all.
I'm going to
Thanks.
renew my objection. There's no connection to this case that laid so far. There's no foundation to this.
wrong. Your objection's overruled. You did lay foundation for it.
I show you a certified record of this GSI case. Just to confirm we're talking about the same person.
Your Honor, I have no idea what a certified record of a GSI case means.
It's the criminal judgment I'm happy to show you. Thank you very much. So you had a quick second to look at that?
Yeah.
What do you see there?
It's a criminal judgment
For who?
for Devon Vivier.
Is this for the GSI case we were discussing?
It would appear to be, yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to offer this criminal judgment as a self-authenticating document as a certified record for the court.
Mr. Nelson?
Your Honor, there is no relevance to that GSI and this case. So I object on
What's
that
the
grounds.
exhibit number?
1A, or I guess A, Your Honor, defense A.
It would be B. So this would be Defense Exhibit B. And Mr. Sand, you believe there's relevance to this?
I do. I believe, as we're pointing on the board as to where this happened, as to the reason Mr. Vivier was being questioned by detectives when this happened, I believe it's very relevant.
Your objection is sustained. It's not relevant.
Okay.
Make sure you don't take it with you.
You want me to leave it up here, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, only the judgment was offered. There's quite a few more pages than just the judgment.
Yep, just the judgment.
Mr. Sand, how many pages is B?
I'd have to count it here. Your Honor, do you want me to tell you how many pages it is?
I do. Appears to be 7 pages. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Strandberg, you had investigated Mr. Vivier's GSI case. We established that. Did that leave your department or lead you to any connection to investigating him in this case?
He was certainly somebody we should have looked into.
Yeah. I mean, given the proximity of where we were pointing to up here where it all happened, right?
And other things. Well, I guess he wasn't involved in that, so no. I'll take that back.
How close in proximity were the dates?
I would say 3 weeks.
Do you know of any other associates of Mr. Vivier that you came across during your investigation?
During this investigation?
One of them is Knudsen, yeah.
No, we're talking this investigation, not that investigation.
The one of Ms. Knudsen here, sir.
Yes. Devon Hall?
Devon Hall is an associate of Mr. Vivier's?
Yes.
Okay. What did you learn about Devon Hall?
I did not. I was not really involved in the investigations into Devon Hall.
Who was that? Who was?
I don't know.
But other officers at Minot PD?
Yes.
Did you talk to a woman named Felicia Campbell in 2007? Do you remember that? I know.
I remember it from my notes, but I don't remember the conversation.
I got you. If I showed you a very old report of yours, would that help you refresh your recollection?
Yes.
So this is the report. This is where I'd like to have you look right here on 7507, just to the end.
Okay.
Do you recall that conversation now?
Vaguely, maybe.
Okay. Do you remember what Ms. Tartmine said to you?
Objection, Your Honor. That would call for hearsay.
Do you remember what you learned?
Sustained.
Do you remember what you learned from talking to Ms. Campbell?
Objection, Your Honor. That would be relying on hearsay at this point.
It's not an objection.
Overruled.
She talked about being at the club with some friends, and one of them being at least Drawn Vivier was there.
Did she say what, not talking to Jerron Vivier? or not
Objection,
talking
Your Honor.
about
This
him?
is hearsay.
Sustained.
What club are we talking about?
Yeah, the 101.
101. Okay. Did your investigation lead you to any information of Mr. Vivier going to the 101?
The only recollection I have is from what you just showed me.
Did you pull any records from it? You know, at the 101, are you aware that they scan IDs? Or they did?
Sure.
Were you involved in any record pulling from those IDs being scanned?
Not that I recall.
Okay. What in your investigation led to you realizing that Mr. Vivier went to the 101?
I guess my conversation with Campbell.
With this woman?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know where Mr. Vivier is originally from?
He's from the Fort Peck Indian Reservation, I think Wolf Point, but I'm not sure if that's if Wolf Point's where he's from, but he's from the reservation.
He's from Fort Peck Indian Reservation. Okay. In your investigation, and you may not know this, but do you know where Devon Hall's from?
I believe he's from Fort Peck as well.
Thank you, sir. 2000, is this still going?
Colette, is he still on?
Do we need a new battery?
It's on.
Mr. Sand, perhaps if you put it on your tie, it might work better.
Mr. Strand? Mr. Strandberg, do you recall receiving a voicemail from a Carla McGill in 2022?
A voicemail from who?
Carla McGill?
No.
Do you remember ever receiving a voicemail from Carla McGill?
No.
Okay.
In 2022?
No, I apologize. That's when the transcript started on this. It would have been in 2007, but I'm going to withdraw this line of questioning for later, sir. Now, I know other investigators worked on this report, so if you don't know, that's okay. But did you learn anything else about this knife? This Indian head knife?
Yeah.
Okay.
That knife in particular?
This knife.
Not that knife in particular.
Okay.
I discovered the manufacturer and
Okay.
stuff
This
like
knife
that.
in particular.
No.
Okay. Now, just to make sure I understand, you sat in on an interview with Mr. Vivier while Ryan Sandberg, defense counsel, was there. Did you ever have another occasion to talk to him during this investigation?
Duran?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Probably in the
Or
other,
not that I remember.
probably in the other investigations, though, that we discussed earlier.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. I appreciate it, sir.
All right. So Nelson, do you have any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Sandberg, the running man that was described here, we're not talking about the movie, we're talking about the person running near the scene there. Was that person you said was identified?
It was.
And how was that person identified?
He came forth. I don't remember his name. He was somebody out doing newspaper deliveries back when they did that. And he was running, finishing his route.
So it
This
was
is my memory.
an innocent reason for him being there and running in that moment.
Yes.
And Jerome Vivier, he was looked into for this what happened in that investigation?
I guess we investigated him and didn't find any evidence tying him to the case.
So he was ruled out as a suspect.
As much as anybody.
Did you receive information that he wasn't even in Minot at the time of the murder?
Not that I remember.
Okay. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand,
Nothing else, Your Honor.
is the officer here by subpoena? Mr. Nelson?
He is, Your Honor. He can be released.
Mr. Sand, any objections?
No, I just will note for the court that we have this officer under subpoena as well.
So do you wish to, and is he under your subpoena?
He's under our subpoena as well, I believe,
Do
for
you
next
wish to
week.
keep him then?
Yes, Your Honor, we're going to keep him.
So, Mr. Sandberg, you're still under their subpoena. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Counsel, it's 6 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'd like to take a short break. Any objections?
None from the state, Your Honor.
No objection, sir.
All right. Can you turn off well, you can leave the camera on for my admonition, I suppose. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to take a short break. Again, it's 6 minutes after. We'll reconvene at 20 minutes after, so about 14 minutes. To you, as I've promised I would read to you. By the end of the trial, you will be tired of hearing it. But please do not converse with any witnesses, any party, or any attorney in this case concerning any matter, direct any questions, or discuss any problems you may have with the bailiffs. Do not read about, listen to, or view news accounts of this trial. Until you retire to deliberate your verdict, please do not discuss the case. Do not allow anyone to discuss the case with you. And do not use the internet or other electronic technology in an attempt to learn information about this case or communicate with your family, friends, or anyone else about this case. And please do not form nor express any opinions about this case. Once again, I will repeat this instruction to you at each recess. If I fail to do that, it will apply to you throughout the trial. All right, we'll be in recess till 3:20. Please turn off the cameras.
All right.
Anything before I bring in the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, wait then. We'll go on the record. Time is 22 minutes after 3 o'clock. We're back on the record. The parties are present along with counsel. The jury is not present. Mr. Nelson, you have some issue?
It's not so much an issue, Your Honor. Just need to, for the record. I guess we were under the impression that there was a recording at the bench when we had our sidebar, but Colette informed us that there is no recording. So we just need to do a brief summary for the record of the sidebar that took place in the last witness's testimony, Your Honor. It was about the report into Chief Klug, Your Honor, and its
No.
relevance.
No.
That was my recollection, at least.
I remember your recollection, Mr. Nelson, but I'm not in agreement that what we did was to be put on the record. I addressed it afterwards by addressing the request, the objection, and whether or not the witness could testify. That's what we discussed. So my response on the record was what we did at the bench.
Then that works, Your Honor. I just want to make sure there's a clean record is all. And that's,
so do
I
I.
appreciate that.
And so do I.
That's the only thing I had, Your Honor. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. You can call it.
Mr. Sand, did you have anything?
The jury is now present and seated. Ms. Sorgan, do you waive roll call of the jury?
State witness roll call, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you waive roll call of the jury?
We do, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Sorgan, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, I'll be handling the direct on this witness. It's
All right.
David Goodman.
All right. Call David Goodman. Sir, if you'll come up here, she's going to swear you an oath, please.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
And you have your seat over there, please. Once you're situated, officer, just have the mic aimed at your chin, please. All right, Mr. Nelson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you state your name for the record, please?
David Goodman.
And since, like the previous gentlemen that have been testifying. You haven't testified in a while in district court. Could you spell your last name for us, please?
It's Goodman.
Okay. In June of 2007, were you employed at the Minot Police Department?
Yes, I was.
What were the dates of your employment with the Minot Police Department?
Started in May of 1990, and I retired in June of 2021.
Okay. And could you give us a rundown of your training and experience?
The 31 years of law enforcement experience. I started in dispatch. I was in that for about a year and a half. Hired on as a police officer. Went to the police academy in Bismarck. Attended that and graduated from that. Numerous hours of police training on various police topics, including investigative topics, and college, high school.
We won't ask you for the graduation dates in high school.
Okay.
So you were a licensed peace officer during that period of time?
Yes.
Okay. And on June 4th of 2007, what was your role with the Minot Police Department?
I was a sergeant in the investigations division.
Okay. Now, was that your role through the end of your career as well?
It was, yes.
Okay. How did you come to be involved in this case?
I was off duty and I received a call from Lieutenant Rob White. I believe he was the shift commander that night. And he stated that detectives were out at the scene and they were asking for additional manpower. So I came in to assist with that.
Now, when you say shift commander, does that just mean the person who's basically in charge of the day-to-day operations of the police department in that moment?
At that moment, and the patrol shift that is out in the street, yes.
Okay. So did you then respond to for that incident that you were called out on?
I did, yes.
Okay. And where did you respond to?
I responded initially to the police department. At that time, our vehicles were left at the police department. So I went there in my own vehicle. I got the gear and stuff that I needed to go up to the residence.
When you say the gear, what do you mean by that?
Well, just like my radio, my call-out bag, just my bag that would have stuff that I may need while I'm up at the scene.
Okay. So you drove your personal vehicle to the police department and got a vehicle that was owned by the city?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you drove that vehicle to the scene?
Yes.
And what happened when you arrived at the scene?
I met with the officers that were on scene, and they kind of briefed me on what they had up there at that point. I looked over the scene. I had brought a crime scope that we had used at that time up to the scene.
What is a crime scope?
It's just it's a light that's used to try and detect certain fibers or fluids that might not be seen by the naked eye.
So a layman, is that the sort of thing that might be used to look for, say, blood or vomit or something like that, bodily fluids?
That's correct.
Okay. What happened next?
We had kind of an ongoing discussion amongst the investigators that were there. We looked at the body. We saw Anita Knutz's body laying on her bed.
Could you describe that for us, please?
She was laying, she had a robe, very light pink colored robe on, and she was flopped over, kind of sitting on her legs, and her head was near the foot of the bed, and she was face down. I could see on the back of her robe, there was a small blood spot, kind of in the middle of the back of the robe, and I kind of suspected that she might have an injury somewhere on her back. Excuse me.
What happened next?
We discussed again what we were going to do to proceed, and we decided that we wanted to look at her body closer just to see what we could determine was possibly the cause of her death, and go from there. So we had another detective that was on her way up to the scene, and she was bringing us some paper that we would use to lay down on the carpet just to keep it to try not to contaminate the scene.
Is that the butcher paper that we're talking about, like 4 feet wide rolls that are 200 feet or whatever?
Yeah, always thought it reminded me of what every grade school has with the rolls of paper that they rip for art projects and stuff. So but that's exactly what it was.
Okay, please continue.
We looked at the floor area next to her bed, and just to determine that there wasn't any evidence that we wanted to collect from there. And once Sergeant Murphy was on scene with that paper, she ripped off a chunk and laid it down on the floor so we could put Anita from the bed down onto that paper. So that's what we did. And at that point, we were able to get a closer look on what injuries she had. I noticed a stab to what would be her right chest area, and a stab in or what appeared to be a stab wound to the middle of her sternum. So it seemed obvious that that was more than likely her cause of death.
And how were you able to determine that they were stab wounds?
You could just kind of see the cut in the skin, and I've seen stab wounds many times throughout my career, and it seemed to match up with that.
It was consistent with those other stab wounds that you saw?
Yes.
Okay. Please continue.
So we also saw her back and noticed that there was no injury on her back. So we were trying to figure that out. And the best I could tell is it looked like the stab wound to her right chest area had run down and kind of back around onto her back as she was maneuvering to try and get up or whatever she was doing at that point when she ended up face down.
Okay.
Face down, excuse me.
And that's how you saw her, was face down when you came in?
Yes.
Okay. What happened next?
We took pictures of the scene, and we had assigned one of the investigators that was there as the evidence custodian. He kind of set up an area out in the kitchen, living room area where any evidence that was collected was brought to him, and we just kind of proceeded with that at that point.
So a separate spot for collection?
Well, a separate spot just to bring all the evidence to. Just
Okay.
an area that would be kind of away from the scene of the homicide, but yet still in the apartment, so we could just kind of take everything to that one officer so he could record it. And
So just for purposes of inventory?
correct.
And catalog, make sure that everything was recorded, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay. Please continue.
We began to take pictures, and I don't remember exactly who took pictures, but began to take pictures of the apartment. I noticed that her room, I just kind of took a mental note that her room seemed to be not in disarray. There were things set up on her dresser and stuff that weren't tipped over, so it didn't appear that there was any sort of a scuffle. I was trying to see if, in my mind, if I could come up with a motive, what took place or what had happened. I noticed her purse was sitting there, had cash visible in it, so it didn't appear to be a robbery or a burglary or anything like that.
Now, you've seen other crime scenes in your history as a detective with the Minot Police Department.
Yes.
And you said that this one, things weren't disturbed.
Things did not appear to be disturbed to indicate that there was a scuffle of any kind.
In those other crime scenes that you've seen, disturbed things, do those usually indicate that a scuffle, a fight of some kind had occurred?
Yes, I've seen that over my career where things are tipped over or messed up.
So the absence of that indicates that we don't know if there was or was not, but there's no evidence of a fight.
I did not see any evidence of a fight or a scuffle at all.
Okay, please continue.
There got to be a point where there was people gathering outside the apartment. So I made contact with them outside, talked with them a little bit. We had a discussion amongst us that two of us would go down to the police department and start doing interviews there, trying to get them away from the scene and in a more organized area. I believe that was Detective Barnard and Sergeant Nancy Murphy that were going to go to the police department to meet with witnesses or friends or family that were gathering at the apartment. I talked to a couple of females outside the apartment who stated they were friends of Anita, and I asked them to go to the police department and ask for Detective Barnard.
Now, were you there on scene when community ambulance came for the body?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and describe that process for us, please.
I had, not too long before that, I had met with Anita's aunt and the gentleman that was with her. They were at the scene, and she stated that she wanted to remain there until Anita's body was removed from the scene. I told her that I felt that that was close because we had, I believe, dispatch reach out to community ambulance, and I knew that they were on their way up there. By that time, it was getting pretty late. It was pushing, I think, towards midnight, maybe 11:30 to midnight. So they did arrive on scene with the community ambulance vehicle. We had, again, discussed amongst ourselves that we wanted somebody to make a positive identification of Anita, somebody that knew her. So I went back out and I spoke with her aunt and the gentleman that was with her, and they both stated they'd be willing to do that. But again, the gentleman with her said that he would be the one to do it, and that he had known her for approximately 15 years, I believe. So he came in. By that time, community ambulance had been into the apartment, and we assisted them in putting her into a body bag. And we had her on the gurney moved out to the living room, and I unzipped the body bag enough just so he could see her face, and he said right away that he was 100% sure that was Anita.
So he identified the victim of the homicide as Anita Knudsen?
He did, yes.
Okay. What happened next?
At that point, her body was removed from the scene. We continued to process the scene and collect anything that we thought was of any possible evidentiary value. And I had also been asked by one of the other investigators to make contact with the maintenance man who was standing outside and visit with him about Anita's window and the screen that was in her window, and just kind of what he knew about this. So at some point in all of that, I did go out and meet with him.
When Anita's body was still at the scene prior to being transported away from there by community ambulance, did Nichole Rice come to the scene during that period of time?
I believe she was outside the residence, but she was not inside at all, no.
So she would have been outside the residence, and you testified a moment ago that Anita's body was put into a body bag?
Correct.
Like the black plastic that we see on TV?
Yes.
Can you see through that black plastic?
No.
If you could, you wouldn't have had to unzip it for the identification.
Correct.
Right? So the defendant could not have seen what Anita looked like because the body was in the bag the entire time it was transported to the...
Objection, Your Honor, he's testifying.
Sustained.
Could she have seen the body at that point?
No.
What happened next in the investigation?
As I was indicating, I went out and I made contact with the maintenance man, Marty Arnell, and I asked if he'd provide me with a recorded statement, and he said that he would. So we had our crime scene van there, and it was just kind of a convenient spot to go that was just away from everybody else that was gathering. So we went inside the van, and I obtained a recorded statement about what he had found that morning and just kind of his involvement in this.
Was he cooperative with you?
Very cooperative, yes.
And when you were in your career as a detective with the Minot Police Department, have you had cause to sometimes to figure out if someone's being deceptive with you?
Yes.
Was there anything to indicate that Mr. Arnell was being deceptive when he was speaking with you?
No, not at all.
Okay. What happened next in the investigation?
We collected all that evidence. We ended up taking it out to the crime scene van, and we eventually transported that to the police department, where we took it from the crime scene van into the Minot Police Department crime lab areas where it was stored for a while. It's a secured area, and we chose to store it there just because it was easy access for us investigators while this was still a very active investigation.
Okay. Was the scene itself secured overnight?
The scene was secured, and we didn't release the scene at all. We kept an officer there overnight just to make sure that it was protected.
Did you return to that scene the next morning?
Yes, I did.
And what was the purpose for returning to the scene?
I returned to the scene with Jason Sunbakken. He and I went up there to finish up some measuring to see if there was anything of any evidentiary value that we would have missed the night before. I don't recall that there was. I'm not sure on that though. But our main purpose was to measure out the apartment so he could do a decent diagram of the apartment and the scene.
Were you present with him when he did those measurements and made the diagram?
Yes, I was.
Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Now, Detective Goodman have handed you a document. Do you recognize that document?
I do, yes.
Is that a true and accurate copy of that document?
Yes.
Is that the diagram that was created?
Yes, appears to be.
That's a one-page document, is that correct?
Yes.
State moves to enter Exhibit 10 into evidence, Your Honor.
Objection, Your Honor. He didn't show it to me on his walk-up. I asked him to take a look at it. I don't know what he's showing to him. I'd just like to take a look at it.
You may.
Good to go. Thank you.
Don't call me Bud.
Keep your comments based on the case, gentlemen.
Thank you.
No objection, Your Honor.
Claims Exhibit 10 is received without objection.
So that is the diagram of the apartment?
Yes.
And does that show where Anita's body was found?
Yes, it does.
What happened next?
At that point, we were finishing up there. We had discussed with other investigators whether we needed to hold the scene any longer. We didn't feel we needed to. We wanted Anita's roommate, Nichole Thomas, it was at the time.
Is that the defendant here today?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
Please continue.
We wanted her to come in and look at her apartment, basically, and see if she noticed anything that was out of the ordinary that she would know that we just weren't catching because we're not in there every day like she would have been.
So you would expect a resident of that apartment to know more about that, something out of place, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay. So you brought the defendant there for that purpose?
We didn't bring her there. I think she met us there.
Okay.
If I remember right. And then, yeah, so she came in and looked it over and didn't notice anything that was helpful to us as far as collecting evidence.
Was she asked if there was anything out of place or anything missing?
She wasn't asked that, but she walked to the area of her bedroom door and then with a shocked announcement stated that her iPod was missing.
And was that unusual to you?
I thought it was kind of strange. I thought it was a quick comment that she would make just standing outside her bedroom door, and how she would know an iPod was missing just that quickly.
So it was,
it was strange.
It was almost immediate, her saying that?
Yes.
Okay. What happened next?
At that point, then, we released the scene and then just went about the investigation. We had meetings, at least daily initially, to try and, as a group, come up with what needed to be done next, kind of a to-do list, if you will.
Okay. And what was decided to be done next?
Well, there was, I know at one point we got information that it appeared, and I think this information may have come from Anita's sister, but it appeared that she had a pair of light blue pajamas with ducks on them missing. So I know I was part of that. We had found out that garbages in the area had been emptied on a certain date, and that certain garbage was still on a truck. So I had communication with people with the City of Minot Sanitation, and we arranged a garbage search to see if we could come up with finding these missing pajamas. I worked with other officers that kind of joined me on that, since it's not really the best task in the world to go out and dig through garbage. So we kind of did that as a team to try and make it.
So I suppose rank has its privileges in a moment like that?
It probably did. I didn't realize it at the time, but it probably did.
Did you investigate the knife used in this murder?
I remember when the knife was found. I think I was finishing up the interview with Marty Arnell outside, and I remember just one of the investigators saying something that I could overhear. And as far as me investigating it, I did look into it in different people that I had met with, and I'm not sure at what point of the investigation that was, but I did have some involvement in that, yes.
On the 6th of June of 2007, did you go to Wally's World of Knives?
Yes, I did.
And what was the purpose of that visit?
Purpose of that visit was just to show somebody that has knowledge on knives a picture of the knife to see if they could give us some direction and where to go with that.
And what did you learn about the knife there?
I learned that it was a cheap knife, that they're a dime a dozen at flea markets, and I think he had mentioned possibly at a powwow maybe, because it had a Indian headdress symbol on one side.
So it's a very common knife.
He didn't really say common, but he just said that they're cheap, but I mean that they would have been probably sold in bulk.
Okay. Did you go through any phone messages involved with this case?
I did, yes.
What phone messages did you go through involved in this case?
I went through the phone messages on Anita's phone.
And did you take photographs of those messages?
I did, yes.
Now, Detective Goodman, I'm handing you 2 sets of photographs. If you could take them out of the packaging there. Do you recognize that set?
Yes.
And what are those photographs of?
Just photographs of messages. One is from her outbox, and one is just one of the messages from her phone.
And are these true and accurate photographs or copies of the photograph that you took of the victim's phone?
Yes.
State moves to enter this into evidence. It's 11A and B, is that correct?
Yes.
You could hand me the plastic back and keep the paper. And if you could take it's kind of a trapper keep type thing there, the orange plastic. Take those out and look at them, please. Oh, excuse me. The state moves to enter Exhibit A, 11A, and 11B into evidence.
Mr. Sam.
No objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibits 11A and 11B are received without objection.
And if you could look at these, please. And are those true and accurate copies of the photographs that you took of those messages?
Yes, they are.
And that's 12A through O, is that correct?
Yes.
State moves to enter exhibits 12A through O into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
If I can get the plastic back.
States exhibits 12A through 12O are received without objection.
Did you interview the defendant on June 12th
Possibly June 11th.
or June 11th, excuse me?
Yes, I did.
Okay. We're going to have to kind of circle back to that in a minute, Detective.
Okay.
Now, were you part of a reenactment at the scene?
Yes, I was.
What was that reenactment?
I wanted to go up to the apartment and reenact the idea on whether or not somebody could have entered that window or exited the window of her bedroom as a point of entry and exit.
Now, how was that reenactment done?
We went up there. I had made some calls. I spoke with the property manager to see if I could go up to that same apartment and do this reenactment. I wanted to videotape it, so we had our clerk from our office come up and run the video camera and videotape as we did that reenactment.
So what did you do during the reenactment exactly?
I brought with me a picture of the cut screen, and they had replaced the screen in her bedroom window with a new screen. I had gotten permission from them to do this and to cut the new screen. So looking at the picture, I took a knife and I cut the screen the same way that the screen was cut in Anita's bedroom window during the time of the homicide.
Okay. And what did you learn from that?
I learned that after doing that, I didn't feel that it was possible that the person that committed the homicide entered or exited out the window.
Why is that?
I didn't, in doing it, we tested it with myself and with Sergeant Thompson, who's about my height, a little bit shorter, much skinnier. And then also with our clerk, and she's a shorter, petite gal. And the screen was stretching and tearing in different areas than the original screen that we had from the time of the homicide.
Okay. Now, what year did you say that you retired from the Minot Police Department?
2021.
Okay. Did this case basically become yours at a certain point?
It was at different times due to the retirement of Detective Barnard. He was the case agent initially. At different times it was not necessarily assigned, but maybe assigned is the best word to use, to a certain individual just so they could be the point of contact for any questions or any new leads that might come in, or that they could certainly also run with the investigation if they could, if they had time.
So it's not so much that it was assigned to you, but that you were the only one that was there to do it.
I was, during my time, I remember it being assigned to one of the other investigators before me. Then I think he got promoted out of the office, and then it was assigned to me for a while. And yeah, then I would just, any calls about it or questions about the case would be directed to me.
Okay. Now, in your time as a detective with the Minot Police Department, were you contacted by podcasts, TV shows, that sort of thing for information on this case?
Yes.
What sort of entities were contacting you?
I know Crime Watch Daily contacted me. Dateline has contacted me.
Now, was there a certain point when the Minot Police Department kind of made the decision that they were going to shift from not necessarily cooperating to working with those folks?
There was, yeah, and that was a different TV show, Cold Justice, I believe the name of that one is.
And do you know why there was a change in that?
It got to a point where the administration, I believe, discussed it and decided that at that point we weren't at a point in the investigation where we felt that it could be brought to the prosecutor's office. So I suspect that they decided at that time that they were going to try that.
Now, you were in the detectives part of the Minot Police Department for 14 years before you retired after the murder, or roughly that, right? Because you retired in 2021?
Yes.
In that 14 years, did you have the time with other cases? I'm assuming you had other cases you had to investigate?
During that time, yes. I had other cases to investigate, and cases came in at a steady pace daily. And so there was never really any downtime to look at it. I mean, we had to make a point of getting this case assigned out to somebody to where they were specifically only going to work on this case. Otherwise, it was just constant other cases coming in that needed to be dealt with as well.
So at any point in those 14 years, did you yourself have the time to focus on this matter to give it your full attention?
No.
Okay. Now, in the 14 years that you investigated this case or were part of the investigation, were there other suspects that came up that needed to be looked at?
Other people came up quite a bit, yes.
Okay. And how did you go about eliminating those people as suspects?
There were different things, different ways. I mean, we'd reach out, we'd try and do everything we could to meet with that person. There was various ways that they were eliminated or kind of checked off our list to where we didn't feel they were any longer a person of interest. I don't know that anyone ever reached the level of being a suspect, but we were able to, just to give a couple examples, one guy talked to us, denied it, then a couple days later came forward and said, I was in jail at that time from, I think, the 1st to the 10th of June. And
so it'd be pretty hard for somebody who was incarcerated at the time to do a murder like this.
Right, and I verified that he was. Another example, a guy that gave information on a guy that lived on the East Coast, I believe, said he was a truck driver. We were able to have law enforcement make contact with him and look at his truck logs and verify that he wasn't anywhere near North Dakota. So yeah, there was nobody that we were looking at that we thought needed to be bumped up to the level of being a suspect in this case.
Okay. During that entire investigation, did you ever determine that the defendant was not a suspect?
No.
And why is that?
I was suspicious of her from the very beginning. just because of her demeanor when she went into the apartment. Some of the her information she was giving was she was contradicting herself, and I just wasn't buying what she was telling us. Some of it, one of my first interviews with her, we discussed ahead of time, don't tell me any lies, don't be untruthful about anything, because if it's illegal, I don't care about that. I'm looking at the big picture here. And in that interview, she did lie.
What was the lie?
She lied about what she did on that Saturday night, where she was at, and what she did.
In your experience, your long experience as a detective, is that significant?
I believe it is, yes.
Why is that significant?
Because it just, in my mind, shows that she's hiding something.
Now, Detective Goodman, I just handed you a document labeled Exhibit 13. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
What is that document?
This is the transcribed statement that Nichole Thomas at the time gave to me on June 11th.
Okay.
To myself and Sergeant Murphy.
Now, other than a couple of redactions that are in there, you'll find that there's some black lines, I think, pretty deep into the document. Is that a true and accurate copy of that transcript?
Yes, appears to be.
The state moves to enter Exhibit 13 into evidence, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand?
No objection, Your Honor.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 13 is received without objection.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Sand, do you wish to cross-examine?
I do, sir.
You may proceed.
Detective Goodman, do you know the first time you got on the scene, what time that was and what date that was?
It was June 4th, and I believe it was around, without looking at my report, guessing around 8 p.m. maybe, 7:30, 8 p.m.
And that was Monday, June 4th?
Yes.
Okay. Did you photograph anything at the scene?
I believe we assigned Lieutenant Strandberg to do that, to do the photographs. I don't believe I did.
Okay.
At the scene.
Now, you interviewed a man named Devon Hall a couple of times, correct?
I interviewed him at least once. I think it was only one time.
Okay. Do you remember on June 22nd interviewing him?
Was it in Wolf Point, Montana?
No. Well, let me take another look here. I don't believe this one was, no.
Where?
Did you have a chance to review your reports before you came in today?
I reviewed some, but I didn't review all the
Show you
pages.
a copy of page 16 of your report. Have you read from here to here. Will that refresh your recollection?
Yes. Yeah, it looks like Detective Barnard and I did interview Devon Hall. Devon Hall on June 22nd.
Okay, you see the contents of what's in there?
You want me to read it? Okay.
So you recall that conversation with Mr. Hall?
I do, yes.
You recall asking him about the murder weapon?
I recall asking him about a knife.
What did you ask him about the knife?
just if he had recognized the knife, if he had seen the knife before.
This knife?
Yes.
What did he say to you?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
What did you learn from that interview?
I learned from that interview that
Objection, Your Honor, this is hearsay.
It's not, Your Honor. Well, I apologize.
Thank you. Overruled. You can answer the question.
okay. I learned at that point he identified that as a knife that he thought that he once had. That was followed up on at a later date.
Okay. Did he tell you there was an Indian head missing on one side?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Did you learn?
Sustained.
Did you learn that he knew there was an Indian head missing on the other side?
I learned from him that the medallion, I guess, if you will, was missing from the other side. Again, followed up on a later date. Pardon?
On the knife that he had.
On a knife that he thought he had.
Is there a medallion missing from this knife?
There is.
Where did it come from? Where did this knife come from?
That knife, that's a picture of the knife that we located at the scene of the homicide.
Do you know where it was at the homicide?
It was on the foot of the bed,
The foot of the bed.
near the window.
Next to Anita's body.
Correct.
On the same bed.
Correct.
Devon Hall said that he had a knife. I want to make sure I got this right. That was missing a medallion, an Indian head medallion. And you found this knife at the scene.
Your Honor, is there a reason Mr. Sand is moving about the well?
Do you have an objection, Mr. Nelson?
I do, Your Honor. There's
And-
no purpose for this. You can ask questions at
Overruled.
counsel's table.
Overruled.
Sorry, sir. This is a knife from the murder scene. Correct?
Correct.
Devon Hall said that he possessed a knife that was missing an Indian head medallion, correct?
That was missing the medallion, but it was later found out to be a different knife that he was confusing for this knife.
I didn't ask that, and we'll get to that interview
Okay.
because we've just got a recording of it. Devon Hall admitted to having in his possession a knife with a missing medallion Indian head on one side and the Indian head medallion on the other. In that interview on the
Objection, Your Honor. This is asked and answered it multiple times at this
Well,
point.
if I could respond.
Overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
He admitted to having a knife that was missing the medallion on one side.
And had the Indian head medallion on the other.
Had the medallion on the other side, but he confused it for another knife.
Your Honor, I have to object. That was not, the counsel did not ask to publish at that point.
The objection is overruled.
Now, you went out to Wolf Point, isn't that right?
Yes, I did.
Did you interview some people out there?
Yes.
Did you interview Ms. Howling Wolf? This is important.
What's her first name?
Anita?
What would have it been about? I don't.
Would have been about Devon Hall and this murder.
Okay. I interviewed several.
I tell you that I, in my discovery, have that. Would that make you feel more inclined to say that you went out there and interviewed her, sir?
Yeah, if you're saying I did, I probably did. I interviewed several people out there.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Do you remember interviewing a Natasha Clancy?
I do, yes.
Do you remember interviewing a Donna Follett?
The name sounds familiar, so I believe I do, yes.
And I apologize if I'm getting a little intense. This is important.
Doesn't bother me.
Thank you, sir. Do you recall what happened in those interviews?
I recall some of what happened.
Do you recall what you learned?
I do. To a certain point. I mean, I don't remember everything.
One thing I'd like to ask you, it looks like the last piece of evidence you got was a transcript, correct? That was entered into evidence?
From Nichole?
Nicole?
Correct.
Correct, okay. I have some transcripts here as well.
Okay.
So on June 12th, 2007, did you interview Anita Hollingwolf and Melda Lambert?
On June 12th?
2007.
Can I look at it? It appears that I have a phone call from Renita Howling-Wolf and Melda Lambert, and the date on this is June 12th, and I don't know if it's the date on the top of this, so I'm not sure if it was the date
That's
that
the date of the call.
or the date that they transcribed the call.
Okay. But this is a call between you and Ms. Hollingwolf and Ms. Lambert.
Oh, yes, it appears to be.
Okay. Defense is going to offer this transcript as an exhibit, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the state objects. It's full of hearsay.
Your Honor, the state just put a transcript in.
Statements from the defendant are not hearsay by rule.
This is a transcript of a phone call that he conducted, Your Honor. I'm going to ask him about that phone call.
The
What
third
do you
party.
learn from it?
The objection is sustained, Mr. Sand. You want to ask him questions about it, you can ask him questions.
I will. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Can I have you look at this transcript to refresh your recollection? First page is the most important.
Okay. I'm assuming that you just want me to read the first page then?
No, if you could look through the whole thing, I'd appreciate it. Just the first page is the most important. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
You've had a chance to review that?
Yes.
Did you learn from this call that Ms. Howling Wolf believed that her son, Devon, had did something terrible?
My microphone was off, Your Honor. The objection is hearsay.
Sustained.
What did you learn from review of this?
From reviewing that was a phone call reporting that one of those ladies had talked to somebody in Wolf Point or Fraser, Montana about Devon Hall and asking that these ladies pray for him. And I learned, and it refreshed my memory, that this was all stemming from a lady from Family Services in the Wolf Point area had made a comment that I hope Devon didn't have anything to do with this.
What was their
And
biggest
then-
concern on the front page? I want to ask you to take a look at that. What was their biggest
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Not well.
Sustained. You can
What
ask
did you
your
learn from
question.
reading that first page?
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
That's not overruled. What did he learn?
I learned that was the phone call that sparked me to follow up on why this lady in Montana was asking these other ladies to pray for Devon Hall.
Why were they asking?
They were asking, like I said, just how rumors go. The lady from Family Services in Montana had made the comment that she hoped that Devon Hall wasn't involved in this, and then that just kind of sparked as rumors do.
Did that create any issues in your mind as to why people would be calling you about hoping Devon Hall didn't kill somebody in Minot?
Certainly, that's why I followed up on it.
Okay. So from your testimony, what I'm understanding is these women called you and were concerned that Devon Hall may have killed someone in Minot. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they were saying, or she was saying, asking them to pray for her grandson because that, like I said, that rumor flew once the lady from Family Services brought that up and said, I hope he had nothing to do with that incident in
You know how
Minot.
far Wolf Point is from Minot?
Oh, about a 4-hour drive, I think, 3-4 hour drive.
What follow-up did you do after you found that out?
I interviewed somebody and eventually spoke with, I believe I spoke with the lady from Family Services and discovered that that's where that rumor came from.
From Family Services?
Yeah. I don't recall her name.
Do you recall working with the FBI on this case at all?
Yes.
Do you recall them telling you Devon Hall was the
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Do you recall their report concluding that Devon Hall was the prime suspect?
Objection, Your Honor, that would be hearsay.
Sustained. Need to ask it a
What do you
different way.
recall from that FBI report?
When you
Objection,
asked
Your
if
Honor,
I
that's
recall
hearsay.
working,
Stop. It's not overruled. You can answer the question.
when you asked, do I recall working with the FBI on this case, my mind immediately went to Wolf Point because I went with FBI agent Ryan O'Neill to Wolf Point. That's what I thought you were getting at. I don't know, when you talk about a report, I don't know what you're referring
Did
to.
the FBI assist you in this investigation at all?
Yes, Ryan O'Neill went to Wolf Point with me, and I believe they looked at the case, but I don't believe I had really anything to do with that.
Do you remember meeting with Natasha Clancy?
I do, yes.
Can I show you that transcript to refresh your recollection of that?
Sure. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Yeah, if you could. Thank you. It's not too long.
Okay.
In conjunction with that, I'm going to have you refresh your recollection on this paragraph of the report right here. Just make sure it's the right one. Yeah, starting at me.
Okay.
Any case file. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Did you ever refer to that knife as the knife that was used to kill Anita Knudsen?
Did I ever refer to?
That knife as the knife that was used to kill Anita Knudsen?
Yes, I have here today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you do that when you talked to Miss Clancy? Had you take a look at this?
I know you did, but possibly I did. I'm not. I didn't retain it if I did read it.
One more time. It's the first line.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I did.
Okay. You refer to this, the knife, as the knife that was used to kill Anita Knudsen, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. What was Miss Clancy's reaction?
When
Objection, Your Honor, that calls for hearsay.
No. Asked for observation, so overruled. What was her reaction?
when I first showed her a picture of the knife, she acted surprised or shocked.
Do you know Miss Clancy's relationship to Devon Hall?
I believe in the statement I read that she referred to him as her nephew.
Do you remember talking to Miss Follett?
Who is she?
Somebody out in Wolf Point. I
The,
can have you review that.
the name is familiar.
I know it's been a long time, and I appreciate you working with me.
Okay. I do. I remember that name, yes.
I have you review that transcript as well.
You want me to
Can
read
I-
the whole thing?
Can I have the attorneys approach
Sure.
the bench, please? Continue.
Have you had a chance to look at that, sir?
I have not.
Okay.
I
Go ahead and take a look at it.
Okay, go ahead and read it.
No,
Oh.
he's not going to read it. You want to ask him questions, you can ask him questions.
Okay. I'll take it back, sir.
Okay.
Do you recall anything about your conversation with Miss Follett?
Sitting here right now, no.
fair to say you spoke with a number of people out at Wolf Point.
Correct.
Devon Hall's name sounds like it kept coming up. In fact, you went out to Wolf Point and met with Devon Hall, is that correct?
I did, yes.
Did you do any investigation on Club 101?
Yes.
Did you go through the records of Club 101 of who had entered?
Yes.
Okay. What'd you learn from that?
Not a whole lot. Learned that Anita Knudsen had been at that club, I think around mid-May.
Okay.
I tried to identify active military people, so I sent it to OSI on the Minot Air Force Base for them to review to try and see who was active military on that list. I checked our local files to try and identify local people just to see if I would identify somebody that stuck out for some reason, somebody that was traveling through.
You identified Jerron Vivier. Do you recall that?
Off that list? I do not.
You don't?
I don't.
Can I have you take a look at this
Sure.
and refresh your recollection?
Sure.
It's at the bottom of the page.
Where does it say that he was identified off that list?
I'm just having you refresh your recollection, sure.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't see that it says that.
Do you recall a list being part of your report?
What I just read?
No. A list going through who was at Club 101?
I recall that being part of the case file, yes.
Okay. Do you recall Jerron Vivier being there?
At the 101 Club?
Yes.
I do not.
I'm going to switch gears for just a second. I'll be coming back to that. Well, never mind. Do you recall sending a list of who was at the 101 Club to Dan Dahl on July 9th, 2007?
I recall that, and again, I don't recognize the name Dan Dahl, but I recognize the phone number as it being a base-related phone number.
Do you recognize your name there?
And my name, yes. So this must be what I was referring to when I sent it to the base OSI.
So you'd sent this to OSI.
Yes.
And have you refer to the list you sent over. It's alphabetical by first names. In that list, did you send over a person named Jerron Vivier?
Yes.
Okay. And I know it's been a long time, officer, but it's important that we get this right. Can I have that back?
Yes.
Thanks. Is Anita Knudsen's name on that list as well? That same evening.
Your Honor, at this point, I have to object because we're getting quite a bit of testimony from something that is not entered. I forget how that works because I'm not used to it with Ward
What's
County.
your objection?
The objection is we're getting quite a bit of testimony from an exhibit that's not entered into evidence.
Overruled. He's just using it to refresh his memory about who's on the list.
Yes, I see Anita's name on the list as well.
So based on what you sent over to Mr. Dahl, Anita Knudsen and Mr. Vivier were at Club 101 together.
They both appeared to have been there that night. And that's what
Are you
I,
aware of Jerron Vivier's connection with Devon Hall?
I know that, I don't know if there's a relation, but at least a friendship.
Are they both from Fort Peck Reservation?
I believe so.
After your interview at Wolf Point, did you do any other follow-up with Devon Hall?
I don't believe that I did. I don't remember that I did anyway.
Did you know anything about Geron Vivier outside of
I-
what I've asked you?
During the time of the investigation, I do remember his name, yes. Yes,
Remember Devon's name coming up, obviously. You met with him a couple times.
yes.
You said you didn't like Nichole's demeanor when you saw her. You testified to that earlier.
Yes.
So you had like a hunch you didn't like her demeanor?
During the June 11th interview or at the scene
At the scene when we were talking about it,
when she went in?
when you were talking to the state's attorney.
Yeah, when she went in,
I have a note that says you didn't like her demeanor.
okay. Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but yeah, I would agree with
Maybe
that.
I'm paraphrasing, I apologize.
Okay, I would agree with it though.
And you'd gone through some text message where they were upset about an alarm clock or something like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we just went over all this testimony about this knife, correct?
Correct.
Devon Hall. Now we're talking about text messages between roommates and an alarm clock. Do you I want to get this right. You didn't do any follow-up on Devon Hall after that interview? You didn't talk to him again?
I don't remember that I did. It's possible
No,
that I did.
I appreciate it, sir. Further questions?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nelson, are you going to have a,
I can be very brief, Your Honor, and we can,
I'll hold you to that, Mr. Nelson.
I appreciate that, Your Honor. You've never been shy about that.
Go ahead.
Was there any information that you learned in your investigation that Jerome Vivier was at all attached to Anita Knudsen in any way, shape, or form?
No.
So there's no connection between the two of them other than they both happened to be in the same nightclub on the same night.
Correct.
Were there quite a few other people that were in that same nightclub that same night?
Yes.
Now, why did you follow up with the investigation regarding Devon Hall?
Just because his name came up. I mean, on the information that I've already stated, the lady's asking for somebody to pray for him because he may have been involved in that. His name came up and we needed to either elevate him to the suspect list or dismiss him.
Did you ever get any information that put you to the point where you would elevate him to the suspect list?
I did not.
So it was a lead that you ran down, but a fruitless lead.
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Sand, last chance, recross.
Yes, Your Honor. A fruitless lead, you said?
Yes.
After that interview and seeing this knife, that was a fruitless lead?
It was, yep. Yep, the result of my
That's all I
invest.
got.
Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Goodman.
All right. Officer Goodman is hereby subpoena.
He can be released from the state subpoena, Your Honor. My understanding is that it's subpoenaed by the defense.
We have them under subpoena of our own as well, Your Honor.
All right, so, Mr. Goodman, you're not allowed to go then. You still have a subpoena, so.
Do you want me to stay in Grand Forks or can I return
Can I
home?
chat with you after court? Is that all right? And we get
Sure.
it worked out. Thank you.
Yep,
You're excused. Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's time to call it a day for you. Please do not converse with any witnesses, any party, or any attorney in this case concerning any matter. Direct any questions or discuss any problems that you may have with the bailiffs. Do not read about, listen to, or view news accounts of this trial. Until you retire to deliberate your verdict, please do not discuss this case. Do not allow anyone to discuss the case with you. And please do not use the internet or other electronic technology in any attempt to learn information about this case or communicate with your family, friends, or anyone else about this case. And please do not form nor express any opinion about this case until I've given it to you for your deliberations. Again, I hope to repeat this instruction at each recess. If I fail to do so, it applies to you throughout this trial. Tomorrow morning, 8:30 work for you, Ms. Sorgan? Nelson?
That should be fine for us, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand?
Absolutely, sir.
All right. I'd like you back here by 8:15 tomorrow morning. Please follow the bailiffs out. Please turn off the cameras.